Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Matters of Faith, the radio show. Matters of Faith is a show designed to bring issues of interest to you, the listening and viewing audience, that will put a biblical perspective on everyday issues. I am your host,
evening, everybody,
the Reverend
and
Dr.
welcome
J.
to
Matters
Russell,
of Faith,
the
and
radio
it is
show.
my job
Matters
to
of
engage
Faith
you in
is a show
stimulating
designed
dialogue,
to bring issues of
dialogue
interest
that's
to you,
inspiring,
the
listening, and
Matters of
viewing
Faith
audience,
is a show
that will
designed
put a
to
dialogue
biblical
and conversations that
perspective
will
on
help you build your
everyday issues.
determination. I am
Your
your
evening,
host, the
everybody,
Reverend
and
Dr.
welcome
J.
to
Matters of
Russell,
Faith.
the
Conversations
radio
that
show.
will help you
Matters
to
of Faith
engage you in
is a show
biblical
designed
dialogue.
to bring
Everyone born
dialogue
of
that's
God
inspiring,
overcomes the world.
listening, and
Matters of Faith
viewing
is
and
the victory
show
that will
has
have
a
dialogue
biblical
and
perspective
conversations
on
that will help you
everyday
build your
issues.
determination.
First John
I am your
chapter
evening,
5,
everybody,
and
and
welcome
welcome
to
to
Matters of
And
Faith.
now,
Conversations that
ladies
will
and
help
gentlemen,
engage you in
brothers and
stimulating
sisters,
dialogue,
without further
dialogue
ado,
God over
it is
listening,
time.
Matters of
This
Faith
Matters
is
of
a
Faith
show
that will have
the
dialogue
radio
and
show.
conversations that will help you build your determination.
First John
I am your
chapter
evening,
5,
dialogue
and
and
welcome to
conversations.
Matters of Faith.
And now,
Conversations that
ladies
will
and
help
gentlemen,
engage you in
brothers and
stimulating
sisters,
dialogue,
without further
dialogue
ado,
God over
it is
listening,
time.
Matters of
This
Faith
Matters
is
of
a
Faith
show
that will have
the
dialogue
radio
and
show.
conversations that will help you build your
But you never heard all that?
I am your evening, dialogue and conversations. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time. This Matters of Faith that will have dialogue and conversations that will help you build your
But you never heard all that?
I am your evening, dialogue and conversations. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time.
Never heard all that?
I am your evening, dialogue and conversations that will help you build your
But you never heard all that?
I am your evening, dialogue and conversations. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time.
Never heard all that?
I am your evening, dialogue and conversations that will help you build your
But you never heard all that?
I am your evening, dialogue and conversations. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time.
Never heard all that?
I am your evening, dialogue and conversations.
That is a really interesting turn of events. I love that. That was really interesting. So I'm going to do something I haven't done before. I'm going to go back and we're going to start again. We're going to do this all over again.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Matters of Faith, the radio show. Matters of Faith is a show designed to bring issues of interest to you, the listening and viewing audience, that will put a biblical perspective on everyday issues. I am your host, the Reverend Dr. J. Russell, and it is my job to engage you in stimulating dialogue that's inspiring, encouraging, and motivating, dialogue and conversations that will help you build your determination, your commitment, and your character, conversations that will help you keep the faith. Everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. 1 John chapter 5, verse 4. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. Good evening, everybody. It's Monday, February 3rd. It's 8 o'clock, and it's time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. I am your host and executive producer, Reverend Dr. J. Russell. So let me first wish you all a blessed Black History Month. And tonight we're talking about the article and the topic, With a Little Strength. With a Little Strength. My very special guest tonight, Reverend Dr. Brian Lee Spearman, Senior Pastor of Marietta First Baptist Church in Marietta, South Carolina. We are on YouTube, the Matters of Faith YouTube channel, as well as Facebook Live, J. Russell and the Matters of Faith Facebook groups. Telephone and tell a friend they do not want to miss this episode tonight of Matters of Faith, the radio show, With a Little Strength, with Reverend Dr. Brian Lee Spearman. Please don't forget our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company and J. Lauren Russell Consulting, LLC, for all of your church financial consulting needs. You need a church loan. You need your trustees to be trained. You need biblical economic training. You need personal loan reduction strategies, property development, property maintenance. Remember, it's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Reach out to us. Email us at jlaurenr@jlr.llc. That's JLORENR@jlr.llc. Or simply give us a telephone call at 718-328-8096. That's 718-328-8096. Matters of Faith, the book. You can use our Cash App to obtain it. Just $ Matters of Faith. The book is $24.15. That includes shipping and handling. You can send your check or money order to the JLR Company, Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. You can also get it as an ebook by going to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. That's www.smashwords.com/books/view/993-177. Check out the Eat Okra app for all black-owned restaurants all over the nation. That's right, Eat Okra. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. That's the Matters of Faith, the radio show YouTube channel. And last but not least, get your subscription to Better Mag magazine today. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50, and you can get that by going to www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com.
God for giving me this ability, for blessing me, for shaping me, for chastising me, for teaching me, for punishing me, for allowing me to be a vessel and touch people around the world. I want to thank AFI, Cicely Tyson, Ed Zwick, Spike Lee, Carl Franklin, Alan Nirop, my mother. She's 95 years old now. She's something else. She's tough. Everything ends because I'm your mother, that's why. Shut up. Still, the other day, because I'm your mother, that's why. Shut up. To my father, who taught me by example how to be a gentle man, the most important person in my life. 40 years of sacrifice, 40 years of forgiveness. She taught me about faith, spirituality, love, real love, unwavering love, in spite of myself. I would not be alive without Pauletta Washington. I wouldn't be alive. Small minds discuss other people, gossip. Good minds discuss events. Great minds discuss ideas. I was Eleanor Roosevelt. I was also Pauletta's father, my father-in-law. He was a great man. He taught me so much about what being a man really is. I want to end the night with a short video that we recorded of Pauletta's father 30 years ago that my son, Malcolm, gave me, an AFI graduate. Just a short 30-second video, and this is what Pauletta's father had to say 30 years ago.
We were put here for a reason. God created man, and God intends for us to love all mankind. And by being in a loving mood, caring for one another, that's our purpose for life. We should care for one another, and we should love one another.
In this Twitter tweet, meme, mean world that we've created for our children, the least we can do is consider what we've done and think about the young people, the future, and individually, collectively do the best we can to try and turn this thing around. I blame no one. I look in the mirror. On the other side of it, what an opportunity we have, because tomorrow's the first day of the rest of our lives. So what an opportunity we have to practice what he preached. Good night. I'm up here to say thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are cordially invited to join me, Reverend Dr. J. Lauren Russell, tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. at the Baptist Ministers Evening Conference of the Bronx and vicinity, where I will be the order of the day, the preacher. The Baptist Ministers Evening Conference of the Bronx and vicinity meets at Mount Bethel Baptist Church, 698 Cortlandt Avenue in the Bronx, New York. That's 698 Cortlandt Avenue in the Bronx, New York. That's between 153rd and 154th Streets in the Bronx, New York. Remember, tomorrow evening, 7:30 p.m., Reverend Dr. J. Loren Russell will be the order of the day, the preacher, at the Baptist Ministers Evening Conference of the Bronx and vicinity, 698 Cortlandt Avenue, Bronx, New York, at Mount Bethel Baptist Church. I'd love to see you there. And now the article, With a Little Strength. With a Little Strength. Matters of Faith, the column, is carried in the Yonkers Insider, www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. That's www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. The column is also carried in Better Mag magazine, www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. The column is also carried in Pamela's Big Heart newsletter. Now, many of you received the link to the article directly from me. If you did, great. If you did not, you can find it on all of my social media pages, including Facebook, that's Matters of Faith, as well as the J. Loren Russell Facebook group and Facebook pages. You can find it on X. You can find it on Blue Sky. You can find it in LinkedIn. You can find it anywhere you can find me. You'll find the article, With a Little Strength. Revelations chapter 3, verses 7 and 8, New King James Version. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, These things says he who is holy, he who is true, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. I know your works. See, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. For you have a little strength, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. With a little strength. The book of Revelations is one of the most misunderstood books in the Bible. It is avoided by preachers, overlooked by Christians, ignored by almost everyone else because of its peculiar imagery, symbolic language, strange creatures, unexplainable mysteries, and fatalistic conclusions. But if we look beyond the unexplainable, the mysterious, the symbols, and the creatures, if we take the time to really examine the book, we find a book of hope, a book of promise, a book of encouragement, a book of love. There was a total of 7 churches mentioned in this pericope. Only the churches of Philadelphia and Smyrna were singled out as faithful. The church of Philadelphia was commended by Jesus for having a little faith. Because they remained faithful to the Lord and his word, they were allowed to enter the open door. Every church today can identify with one of the 7 churches Jesus mentioned. I hope it's either the Church of Philadelphia or the Church of Smyrna. But whatever church you identify with, remember in this book, there is hope, there is promise, there is encouragement, there is love. Our God is a God of another chance. Every one of the 7 churches, whether they were commended or not, were promised an eternal reward that does not require great strength to acquire. The Church of Philadelphia shows that all you need is enough strength to stay in his word and to go through the door he opens. With just a little strength, or as Jesus quoted in Matthew 17:20, faith as a mustard seed, the reward he promised to the Church of Philadelphia is the same reward for you. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, and the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and I will write on him my new name. Sometimes, when we talk about the church, we think of brick and mortar, but Jesus is talking about flesh and blood. He is talking about the people who make up the church. The challenge to the church is really a challenge to us. With just a little strength, you will be blessed. And now, the question, why would the Lord share, and what would he want us to do with such a profound and challenging message? Let me ask that question again, because this is a profound question. Why would the Lord share, and what would he want us to do with such a profound and challenging message? And now, my brothers and my sisters, Matters of Faith family, it gives me a great deal of pleasure and joy to introduce my guest tonight. Reverend Dr. Brian Lee Spearman is the senior pastor of Marietta First Baptist Church in Marietta, South Carolina. He received his bachelor's degree in elementary education from North Greenville University and taught 9 years in 3rd and 5th grade at Crosswell Elementary School. He has been very involved with students of all ages over the last 20 plus years and loves coaching basketball in his community and working with families. Dr. Spearman has a Master of Christian Ministry degree and has a Doctor of Ministry degree from North Greenville University. He does multiple mission trips to New Orleans each year, partnering with congregations to share and spread the gospel. One of his greatest joys is seeing people come to know Christ and grow in him. He is married to Angela Spearman, and together they have 3 sons. I hope I get this right. Nate, 19, JP, 18, and Alexander, 14. Brian's life is epitomized through his service to Christ within his community and around the world. So Matters of Faith family, would you welcome with me again? This is not his first time at Matters of Faith. It's just been a while. But Matters of Faith, would you just welcome with me tonight my guest and friend, Reverend Dr. Brian Lee Spearman.
Okay, I think I got it all in there. So now you can unmute and you can come on in. I'm going to stop this share and we're going to go ahead and talk up a little bit. So Brother Spearman, how are you, my brother? I'm glad to see you. Thank you for making arrangements on your calendar to come and join us tonight as my special guest. And I'm delighted that you accepted the invitation. So now come on back on. I'm ready for you now. Got to turn your camera on and unmute yourself. Okay. Okay, so while he's getting it together, let me just welcome you all. Thank you for being with Matters of Faith this evening. This is our, this is Black History Month. So thank you for being a part of our Black History celebration. And I'm really grateful and excited about Dr. Spearman being with us tonight. I'm sure he'll get on eventually. He's there. I know we were talking before the show went on. He was telling me that he had some real challenges with the storm that hit South Carolina and that they were out of power literally for weeks. And so I was hoping he could come back on. Let me just text him and tell him that I'm ready for him. I hope he didn't step away. But anyway, I'm going to text him to let him know that I'm here. It isn't letting me show my video. I'm connecting with my phone. That'll be fine. Why don't you just come out, just come completely out, Doc, and then come back in? Why don't you do that? Just end it and come back. Oh, there you go. There we go. Your son had to show you how to do that, right? Because I know you couldn't figure it out.
Oh, mercy.
So did I get the ages right? Because I know that
you did. My 19-year-old just turned 20.
Really?
So he did. He turned 20 like last week. So, but everybody else, that's the right ages. 20, 18, and 14. That's right.
Good. So I did pretty good. I was trying to figure it out. I said, because the last time you were here was like 2021.
Yes, it's been a little while.
It's been a little while. So why don't you do me a favor? Since I've read your bio, they know a little bit about you, but they don't know a lot about you. So why don't you, if you will, just tell us something about you that we don't know and we really should know.
All right. There's a lot of things that I would love to share, but I'll just say this. I have literally been really excited about being back on the show. When you asked me a couple of weeks ago and I was like, oh, I can't do it that week. But honestly, man, my family and the church and just our area is just experiencing some great things. I love the fact that, we have been able to do lots with our church and lots with our community. And so right now I'm in that, I'm in that season. I'm doing a study on the seasons of God
Mm,
at our church on Wednesday nights. And, the one thing I've learned from Ecclesiastes chapter 3 is the fact that those seasons change, and
that's
sometimes
right.
we're in the winter, but there's still some beauty in the winter.
Mm,
And so right now it's kind of crazy. I think the one thing that I would share is just I'm in a different season. My wife and I have been married 21 years, and we got a boy in college. He's
mm.
20 and in his second year of school there, and he's wanting to be a physical education teacher, and he's getting married in August.
Oh, wow.
And so that's kind of a big deal. So he's out of the house, and my 18-year-old is getting ready to graduate in May, and he's doing an internship right now. And so it's just kind of crazy because at night we got our 14-year-old and our 18-year-old who comes home after work or whatever, but our 14-year-old's at home. It's a lot different than when you had all three boys and we were going to a different football practice or a soccer practice or a wrestling practice, and you had to figure out which one you were going to go watch.
Mm,
So it's been a really cool season. It's a good season, but it's just different
yeah.
for our family. And but it's been great. I've been at the church 6 years as the senior pastor now. I've been there 15 years from when I was youth pastor and children's pastor. And so it's just been a really blessed time in my life. And so I'm so excited to be with y'all.
How many people do you have on staff? How many pastors or ministers do you have on staff?
Right now we have a executive pastor. He does a lot with our stuff. He's been there 34 years. We have a full-time pastor. He's associate pastor of families and discipleship. So we got 3 full-time pastors on staff.
Okay. That's unusual. It's interesting because I've worked at Southern Baptist for a number of years.
Oh, absolutely.
In the African American church, this is unusual. This is an unusual scenario because oftentimes the only person getting paid is the pastor and the musician. That's it.
That's right. That's
Everybody
right.
else is completely voluntary. But that's
100%.
the thing because that paradigm, and I've been sort of talking with a lot of the pastors about that in terms of restructuring the way we do things, because if you can get people in full-time ministry and you can afford to pay them, then what you do is you really broaden the ability to reach people in so many different areas.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
many different areas. It's just an amazing thing. But it's a different culture, and there has to be a cultural shift in order for that to take place. But that's nice. 15 years. So the executive pastor has been there for 34 years. You have an
Yep.
associate pastor, and he worked with families and youth.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
that's really nice. That's really nice. So you have, and I know you have a nice youth congregation. Do you guys have sports day at the church as well?
We do. We actually just did our first FCA Fellowship of Christian Athletes All Abilities Camp last week, and so it's we're in a different season right now at the church. I love it. Our gym has been open. They built it 2006, I think, but well before I got there in 2009, and we've done several clinics. But we did our first All Abilities Camp, so we did our first special needs camp actually last Tuesday. I want to say maybe 2 Tuesdays ago. It snowed and everything. We ended up having it. We had 9 kids and come from the community, and had about 30 of our members come out. We did some music with them, and we did a little devotion, and we did a craft, and it was great. But we've got basketball in the area. We do that a lot, different clinics and things like that. And so, but our gym is used basically about every day of the year for something, whether it be some type of community outreach. Like yesterday, the whole Travelers Rest high school football team, they did their actual banquet, their awards banquet in our gym yesterday. And so they set up and did that after church and finished up before church last night. So, it's been great to be able to see how God has been able to work through those things.
That's amazing. I like that. I like that a lot. So the gym was built in 2006, and you guys really now use it 24/7.
Yeah, they built it with the intention of, in Marietta, which is basically the foothills of the mountains, with the intention of reaching the community. The pastor that was there before me, I served with him for 10 years. They said, look, we're going to build it for the community. And so during the daytime, we've got a walking track upstairs, senior adults walk, families walk. We've got a workout gym where they can come and pay $20 lifetime and come work out during the day from 8:30 to 1:30, Monday through Friday. And then we're open on Tuesday night and Thursday nights from 6:30 to 8:30 for the community just to come in and be a part of it. We've got basketball that we're open up on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So there might be 10 youth kids. Sometimes there's 20, depends on all the way up to 30 and 40 years old that come in and play basketball for free. And it's an amazing thing.
My basketball days are over.
Mine are too.
Yeah.
They ended a long time ago. when I don't like to lose.
Oh, is that right?
I'm just going to tell you right now, my church ball days, they were over a long time ago. When I want to start jerking somebody's britches down because they about to dunk on me, it's time to hang up the shoes.
I heard that. Well, mine wasn't about people dunking on me and stuff like that. Mine was just I had some injuries.
Oh, there you go.
I ruptured both of my Achilles.
Ooh.
Yep. Both. I think the first one I did, oh gosh, I'm trying to think now. Yeah, about 25 years ago.
Wow.
And then the other one I did about 5 years ago. Maybe just after or just before you came on. I think after you came on, I think.
Okay.
So I was out, with my grandnephews, and we were out in the Poconos, and there was a swimming pool, there was a basketball court. So the girls went to the swimming pool. I said, I'm gonna go to the swimming pool, I'm gonna relax. Then all the guys went to the basketball court. So, my ego, kind of swelled up. So I go to the basketball court. And, I'm playing a little bit. I'm missing shots that I never miss, right? I was like, this is crazy. So we played a quick game. My game was coming back a little bit, felt a little good about that. I'm throwing my nice passes, doing my little thing. And then some young kids came over, 16, 17-year-olds. Oh, we want to play. And we want him, meaning me. We want him. He's good. So I said, I didn't want to, okay, I'll play. Making my shots, blocked a couple of shots, stole the ball. And then the ball got loose. And I went to grab the loose ball, and I heard something go. And I said, game's over, guys.
I'm done.
Said, what happened? I said, I ruptured my Achilles. They said, you ruptured your Achilles? I said, yep. They said, how do you know? I said, because I did the other one. I know what it feels like.
I know what I'm dealing with right here.
And it was funny because we had some guests. We rented a house, right? We had some of my in-laws were there. And I was telling them the story about the first time I ruptured my Achilles, right? And so I came back. And so I said to them, I said, well, I ruptured my Achilles. He said, yeah, you just told us that story. I said, no, this is a whole new story I got for you. It's a whole different story. So yeah, twice. But I didn't have the surgery the second time. So that was it. I said, now for sure. And I told my sister, my sister Deborah.
I know Miss Deborah.
I told Deborah, I told her before, I said, I'm done with basketball, right? So when I told her I ruptured my Achilles, she said, I thought you told me you were finished with it. I said, I thought I was. But now I am for sure.
I am for real done.
I am for real this time. I'm done. I'm done.
That's classic.
And then during COVID, I actually lost weight while I was going through rehabilitation.
Wow.
I actually lost weight. I said, I'm not going to come out of this overweight, obese, or anything else. I'm not going to do it. And I made a commitment, and I stuck to it. And I exercised, even with the rehabilitation, I exercised every day.
I've gotten back in a regimen about the last 2.5 years. I do something every day.
Yeah.
I had gotten out of the habit, and I tell you, I got back in it, and I make time for it.
Yeah, it's hard.
I make time for it. It is, but I make time for
when you get out of it, getting back into it. I remember, this is off course, but it really is a matter of a little strength, right? I remember very clearly. I said, I'm gonna do some sit-ups, some crunches. Brian, I couldn't do 5 crunches, and I used to do 100 sit-ups, full sit-ups in a minute. I couldn't do 5 crunches.
Sure.
I was like, oh no, this no, this gotta stop. This is ridiculous, And so I started doing it again. Now I can do as many, I can do crunches with period. I don't even have to stop. I'm 20, 30 minutes. I mean, just straight,
Well, when I started swimming again, I literally did about 10 laps, and it about killed me. And I was determined, so a little bit each day, and I got back up, and I swim about 4 miles a week.
Oh, do you? That's good. That's good.
I actually swam a mile a day.
I haven't swam in years, but it only takes a little strength,
That's exactly right.
It just takes a little strength. So listen, I got this thing. I got this article that I wrote. You read it, and it's basically. I mean, when I tell you I struggled with this, I really struggled with this article. It was challenging for me because wasn't quite sure where the Lord was taking me with this article about with a little strength. Because it came from the book of Revelations, and the book of Revelations is one of those books that pastors and ministers, we don't really go there too much. We go there every now and then. But he brought me there, and I had to do it. And I'll tell you why, not right now, but I'll tell you why. He revealed to me on yesterday what the real reason was for this sermon and for this article. But I'm not going to tell you right now. But what did you think when you read it? Because I tell you, I was challenged. I had to write it about 3 or 4 times before I got it right.
I loved it. And I'll tell you what, when I was reading it and looking at that idea behind hope, to be honest with you, ever since probably, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, this idea behind this world that we live in. And the fact is biblically, we can all agree on certain things in Revelation, and we can agree with end times, and then we can just really disagree. I mean, there's so many ways, I know you're probably the same way. I've got friends that are pre-mill, and then I got friends that are all over the place in Revelation. But the thing that you put in there is it's a book of hope.
Yep.
Okay. And so here's what I know. And I tell my congregation this a whole lot. In fact, I probably tell them about every other week. I said, look, we don't know when Jesus is coming back. Not one person does. But I can tell you he's going to, and nobody knows when that is. And the fact is that is the hope. We don't know when that's going to happen. And I can have my ideas of what I think Revelation means and the 7 churches. It was kind of cool when I know this is going to sound crazy, but today I actually went to First Presbyterian in downtown Greenville. I saw that they had an art gallery that I wanted to go look at for people in Asheville who lost basically everything. And these artists had some things. Well, anyway, one of them actually did the 7 church. The mural was the 7 churches Revelation. And I was like, oh my goodness, we're about to talk about this in a couple of hours. And I just stood there and I studied it for a while. And just that idea behind in the article, when you're looking at those churches, the 2 that we talked about, with Philadelphia and those, that idea of we have got to continue no matter what, knowing, right, that the idea behind the hope is that we as believers in Christ know that Christ will return. Mm-hmm. And he's going to return for his church. And what happens there, I can have my ideas of what's going to happen, and people in my church can have ideas of what's going to happen, and theologians can have their ideas of what's going to happen. But the one thing we do know is he's coming back.
That's right.
And nobody knows when. And so that part about hope really, it kind of jumped off the page at me when I was reading it yesterday.
And what's interesting for me is that not only is it a book of hope and a book of love, and I do know when Christ is coming back. I do know. The Bible tells us when every ear has heard, then he's coming back. So if you want to hasten his return, make sure that you're doing your evangelistic duty and talking to everybody. Because you don't know who God is trying to sell. You don't know who he's trying to save. You don't know any. So your job is to tell everybody. Just spread the seeds. Everywhere you go, just spread it. Because 100%. Every ear is heard. The Bible declares that is when he'll return. So as long as we are statistically not sharing our faith, which is what we don't tend to do, then we are not hastening his return. But you know what? I'm convinced that all things happen for a reason.
100%.
COVID was one of the worst things, and you came just before COVID struck. It was one of those times. COVID came, and we went to doing this, which I was doing anyway, right? But more people are participating in worship services because of this virtual medium than ever before, ever. So we are, as long as we don't lose faith and as we don't try to sort of circumvent what the Lord is putting in place. And I believe this is the Lord's putting something in place to reach masses, men of every birth. For an answer, Jesus gave the key. If I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. That was the word, right? And so with this medium of virtuality, we are reaching people that there are people who are coming to worship services that have never set foot in a church before.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind me jumping in here, I really
don't mind at all.
COVID changed so many things, but there were so many things that happened that I saw that was good, that we didn't expect. I mean, at our church, for example, with all the different things going on, like when do you go back? Do you wear a mask? Do you not wear a mask? All these different things. And so many people, thought, well, you know what, we once now we got everything back to normal, let's cut our online feeds. And, we've been online at Marietta at our church for longer than I've been there. I mean, they were already online, for our worship services and things like that. And so our executive pastor can see where people check in, and they might check in from another country because there's a missionary we know there, or might be a family down the street. And so, during COVID, when we had those just online services, you just don't ever know who was watching. And I actually had a gentleman who I get a text from every morning now, like right this minute, every single day. And it was on a Wednesday night. And it was me and my wife who had gone up there with me, and they had the video, and we had one guitarist, and you just didn't know who was listening. And I remember preaching out of First Peter, and it was talking about that living hope and that inheritance that we're going to get no matter what. And that guy called me that night. He called me and he said, I need to talk to you, Brian. And I was like, oh, that's fine. So he gave his life to Christ. He said, listen, everything you just said right now, he said, I'm ready. He said, I'm ready to be the dad I'm supposed to be, the husband I'm supposed to be. And he gave his life to Christ right there on the phone. And I'm telling you, that man, he is amazing. I mean, he will text me every single day. And so a lot of times when we got back into church, I guess this is kind of what we'll wrap it up with, when we got back in and we were coming back to church as normal and all this good stuff, and people started coming back, you still had people who were watching online.
Yep.
And there was another church, and one of my friends, he's like, I got some people who just want to cut it out. They're like, hey, we just need to have people in the seats. And I said, do not do that. I'm like, what if there is a family watching that maybe hasn't been inside your church? And I said, that one Sunday, the Holy Spirit works in their life. And they say, you know what? I want to be in church. Like, I want to go and meet these people. And, and they might come to Christ online, and you don't even know. Or
That's right.
It's just, it's a medium in which COVID did change so many things, but I would agree with you. There's so many ways in which the technology we have now has just drastically helped us be able to reach the masses.
And not just that, think about this, right? All churches everywhere have sick and shut-in people.
Yes.
Everywhere, right? I don't care if you're the largest church in the world, if you are the, church TV or whatever the case might be. I don't care how many members. Everybody has members that are sick and shut in.
Yes.
And prior to virtual, they were shut out not only of the people, it was almost like they were lepers. They were shut out of worship services. They could not participate at all. And suddenly, they were just as involved in worship as everybody else.
That's right.
The Lord leveled the playing field. Everybody now was at the same ground level. We were all watching virtually. And some of those individuals now are reconnected.
Yes.
And they're still, now they're living up to their obligations and responsibility, but they're also being fed. And they were starving.
Yes.
Not just physically, they were starving spiritually. Now they're being fed. They're being taught. They're becoming learned again. And their health is getting better because of it. If we gave up the virtual contact, we would be doing that entire population a disservice.
100%. Well, that, and also people who work.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've got folks in our church. We've got folks, men and women, who on one Sunday, they're on one Sunday and they're off one Sunday.
Right. So
they literally, they might text me and say, hey, Brian, I've got 2 or 3 of us. We're watching at the fire station, or hey, we're watching, and so I'm like, okay, so if there's 3 people watching,
right,
it's more than you would have otherwise. Absolutely. And I promise you, if you cut that out, they're going to find it somewhere.
Yep. or either they're going to go the other direction.
That's exactly right.
So
That's exactly right.
either you open the door, and this is interesting because the scripture that I quoted for says, I open doors that no man can close, and I close them that no man can open.
That's
So
right.
if the door is open and you let them, and they can come in, they may come in. But if the door is not open, they can't come in.
That's right. 100%.
That's the challenge. And then there are some, as you mentioned, there are people watching worship services from places that are obscure that we've never even heard of.
That's right.
Because they have internet and they found it and they like it and they always tune in. And sometimes you don't even know that they're there, but they never stop watching. They never stop participating.
That's right. 100%.
And it's interesting because, I've been doing this now for about 10 years. Yes, matter of fact, yeah, because you were here 4 years ago.
Yep.
This has been a ministry that the Lord placed on my heart. I didn't really want to do this.
Sure.
But the Lord said, do it. And then, I write. So I write these articles, right? I was writing, they're being published and so on and so forth. I didn't want to do that either because that's work. I didn't want to work.
That's right.
I didn't want to preach, right? I just wanted to preach and teach and do that thing. But,
that's right.
But the Lord said, and this is interesting, right? The one of the major publishers that I was publishing with, the Bronx Chronicle, they're no longer functioning. But that's a secular newspaper.
Yeah.
So there were people reading that column on a regular basis.
Yep.
That never came to church. Some of them were staunch atheists, but they read the article every week.
Mm-hmm.
Every week. In fact, I wrote an article, was never forget it. It was it's called It's Not Science, It's Fact. And a woman reached out to me and challenged me on it. Right? And I said, I have no problems with that. I said, matter of fact, I'm glad that you reached out to me. I said, why don't you be my guest on Monday night and we can discuss it?
That's right.
She didn't take me up on the offer. But it didn't matter because what happens is that, what we do is what the Bible says, we disturb their complacency. She had to take a look at it. And because she started talking about it, because she engaged it, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm the agitator, right? I agitate it. Now she's going to look at it from another perspective. She's going to look at it from different places because now I've stirred up something that maybe it was just settled, but now it's unsettled. Now she's looking at it from trying to disprove what I wrote. I didn't write it. I mean, the Lord gave it to me.
It's
based on scripture. So now she can argue and fuss and fight with the Lord because your arm's a little too short to box with God, but you can try if you like. But I'm out of the picture.
That's right.
My job was to stir it up.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Now think about that in relationship to this. That's written. That's published. People read it. It's virtual because that was an online newspaper. This is an online worship service. This is not considered worship because this is a dialogue. This is a deeper dive into the word so that we can, sort of uncover some things and make it more applicable in our lives. But it's the same thing.
Absolutely.
If we give this up, because I've heard a lot of people say, oh, we got to get them back. We got to, no. You have to get them faithful.
Mm-hmm.
If you get them faithful, then what you need in order to maintain the castle, they will provide because they are the kingdom. The kingdom takes care of the castle, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
So when you take care of the kingdom takes care of the castle. But if your main concern is the castle, the kingdom will tear the castle down.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're the only tree in the whole orchard that's bearing fruit.
That's right.
And they're hungry. They're not going to ask you for it. They're going to come and take it.
Mm-hmm.
So your castle is going to be destroyed because your focus is not on the kingdom. It's on the castle.
That's right.
That's my slogan, by the way, in my business. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. And I do church lending. I do church finance. But I'm telling everybody, it's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Focus on the kingdom. They will take care of the castle.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, okay, that's my soapbox for this app. That's it. But I'm glad that you said that because I asked about the article, and I asked the question of everyone, and the question is kind of challenged me as well. Why would the Lord share, and what would he want us to do with such a profound and challenging message? That with a little strength, we can become like the Church of Philadelphia.
No, absolutely. I think when you think about the fact of being here, and I love the fact that you were just talking about, you're really looking at the kingdom. We're not looking at, honestly, God is sovereign. God is in control of every piece of matter. If he wasn't, he's not God.
Right.
And so that idea behind the kingdom, and the one thing that I love just over the last couple of years really is seeing that idea of, there's some days you just don't feel like continuing. It's just like you're tired, I mean, yesterday, for example, I can literally think, like I said, I've been there as pastor about 6.5 years. I can think of 2 times when I was getting ready to preach and the Lord just gave me another message. I'm not one of those guys. I told some of my members today, I'm not one of those willy-nilly guys that gets up there and says, oh, well, I just decided to change it. No, see, it doesn't work like that. Right. But that idea behind that little bit of strength is realizing that without his strength, we are absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
We are nothing. And so yesterday, our Sunday school, our small group lessons were on Psalm 40, which is one of my favorite Psalms ever, talking about, I was in a pit. He heard my cry. He picked me up. He put a new song in my mouth. And yesterday, or the last couple of weeks, I've been preaching through Colossians, the letter to Colossae from Paul. And that idea of it's a letter of warning and it's a letter of love, because he had never been there. Right. But he wanted them to know, hey, listen, all this false teaching and all that stuff, that little bit of strength, you know what I'm saying? And so yesterday, I had already told the congregation at the very beginning, I said, look, go ahead and turn to Colossians chapter 1. That's where we're going to be today. And the Lord laid it on my heart, like in the middle of one of the songs. I was up there and I was praying and I was like, okay, God, you really want me to preach Jonah chapter 2. And the only other time it happened was a couple of years ago. And I like I said, there was a Holy Spirit prompt, but I changed my message to Jesus left the 99 to go to the 1. And I didn't know who it was for. I know who it was for afterwards, but yesterday, that idea behind Jonah and you think about the Church of Philadelphia. So, how do we go with a little bit of strength? And so yesterday I said, look, we've all had Jonah moments. Every single person. I said, I want you to go to Jonah chapter 2. I said, we all have Jonah moments. We have those moments when God has told us specifically what to do.
Yes. Yeah.
And he told him specifically, I want you to go to Nineveh, the most evil place on the planet. Jonah hated Nineveh because of ancestral stuff that had happened beforehand. He did not want to go. And what did it say? He said he tried to flee the Lord's presence, and he ended up paying his fare to go to Tarshish. And it just went haywire from there. And pagans came to know the Lord because they realized he was the only one that could do it. And then all of a sudden, here's Jonah in the belly of the fish. And just that thought process behind, I don't even really like fish, but to be in the belly of one is just not good. But that little bit of strength that Jonah realized he was absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
He had seaweed wrapped around his head, for goodness sakes. And he says, God, I know that you have known me. The billows of the earth covered the water, covered me up. I'm in here. I know that I can't do anything. Salvation belongs to you. And then it said, after that beautiful prayer, it said the fish vomited him up on the beach. And that idea behind that strength of we're all in these pits sometimes, but with the church, it is about the kingdom.
Yeah.
And we want to be a church like Philadelphia. If we want to be a church that continues with that strength, we realize it is about the kingdom. We know that no matter what takes place, that God's in control. And that little bit of strength sometimes is the one thing when we look to the Lord with that last breath and we say, I know I can't do this.
Right.
Pick me up. You put me on the rock. Show me what to do next. And let me, as people who are pastors, who are the shepherds, right? Help me love my sheep. Help me love my sheep. Help me do what God's called me to do with my sheep, and let my sheep know that Christ alone is the only help. And Christ alone is the only one that's going to return. And Christ alone is the only reason we can have that hope. And that little bit of strength with the Lord's strength is perfect strength.
Right. Do you remember what the topic was the last time you were here?
I'm trying to remember. I was trying to look back at my phone and see if I could figure it out. You'll have to help me.
Strength and weakness.
Yep.
Strength and weakness. And you were on with another friend of mine, Reverend Dr. Kevin Miller.
Okay.
Of you, and it was an amazing show. I looked at the transcripts and stuff, and just to see what it was like, but it was an amazing encounter that we had, and we talked about how the Lord literally uses our weaknesses in order to make us strong.
Absolutely.
Now, you said something, and I'm gonna share this. This is a good time to share it. I had no idea where I was going with this message, to be honest with you, none whatsoever. Got to church yesterday. We have our worship service starts at 1 at the church that I'm serving. Very small congregation, literally a handful of people. Get there, there's a young man, and he's there. And the deacon says to me, "Pastor, I need you to speak to this young man." I said, okay. I go back to him. He immediately begins crying, uncontrollably. He says, I just don't know what to do. He says, my brother was killed 2 days ago. He was just slaughtered, and he's crying, he's pouring out his heart. And I'm listening to him. I'm just letting him cry. Held up the beginning of the service. I said, that's not important. This is the pinnacle of what we do. This right here.
Absolutely.
And so as he began to cry, I said, let me pray for you. And I prayed for him. I said, don't go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. And he was there, I understand, early before we started service. And he said, I'm coming back. He came back. And we were only there twice a month, first and third.
Okay.
So prayed with him. And I'm saying, now this whole thing came together. I said, I get it. Just a little strength. I get it. Right? I didn't understand it initially. Couldn't understand why Revelations. But there's hope. There's love in the book of Revelations. There's also hurting and deep pain. I said, but you came here because there was nothing you could do for yourself. And you gave the Lord an opportunity to enter into your life. And when I made the altar call, he gave his life to the Lord.
That is awesome.
You can't make this up. You just can't make it up. And I was like, now I understand why. I said this, and his name is Christian. Wow. Christopher, actually, is Christopher, but Christ is in it, And I said, you can't make this up. I said, Christopher, the Lord had to have you here today. And this was not a sermon for me. It was for you.
Absolutely.
The whole thing, the whole makeup, the article, everything. I didn't understand it, couldn't figure it out. It was for you. I couldn't imagine him coming through that door on yesterday with that testimony. And he cried during the course of it. And I told him, I said, the little bit of faith that you have, I don't know how God works it out. But the fact is that you're here, which is the evidence that he's working it out. While you're trying to figure it out, he's already working it out. He talked about the young man. He wasn't 30 years old. 5 kids. He said, they didn't ask for this. I said, I know, but they got you. They got you. And they're in another town. They're 2.5 hours away from New York City, where I live. Doesn't matter. Distance is nothing to the Lord. It's like time is nothing to the Lord.
Absolutely.
And so, when I think about changing the script or just being obedient to what the Lord is saying, I totally understand where you're coming from. And let me I'm going to backtrack for a second, because I just said turning the script. I was in South Carolina. Maybe South Carolina is the place for this to happen. But I was at Griffin Ebenezer. Griffin Ebenezer Baptist.
I know Griffin Ebenezer very well.
And I was preaching. And I was preaching their 170th or something, 140 something church anniversary. I had this wonderful sermon that I put together. It's nice and written up and had all the pages and everything like that. And I'm sitting in the pulpit. He says, I don't want you to preach that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Lord, I'm 800 miles away from home. I put this together. I've been working on this thing for months. He says, I don't want you to preach it. He said, take out an index card. I always carry index cards. Took out an index card and he began to talk to me. This was like just before they did the sermonic selection. You know, in the black church, they do a sermonic selection before you preach. And I'm scratching stuff on this little piece of paper. So I get up and I say, it's good to be home, family. I need y'all prayers. Because the Lord told me that this sermon that I have, I can't preach it. And I literally threw it behind me. Just threw it on the floor. I said, I can't preach it. And I took out the little index card. I showed her. I said, this is what I'm going to preach. So, and I did. And I used a lot of the stuff that he prepared me with.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Alston said, I have no idea how you knew that we needed that message today. I said, I didn't. The Lord did.
That's right.
He said, I am so glad that you were obedient to him because we needed that word today. And that's how I knew that I don't have any sermons to preach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm simply a mailman.
That's right.
I deliver what's in the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
I do not prepare what's in the envelope. I may think I'm preparing it, but
Mm-hmm.
my job is simply to deliver the message. That's it.
Right. That's right.
And that's what we do as ministers of the gospel. That's what we do. And we know that some of it will fall on good ground, some will fall in the thorns, and some will fall on shallow ground. But when those that hit the good soil and it catches root and it grows, it will become a blessing that we can't even imagine.
Absolutely.
So that's exciting to me. So, you know, I want you to think about that because we're gonna go. We're almost at the top of the hour. So I'm gonna do that now. Go to the break. Reintroduce, recognize my sponsors and advertisers. And I'm also going to reread the article. I'm gonna give another tribute to our African American history, and then I am going to come back and we're going to finish the conversation. And I want to start with the question that I posed to everybody else. And what the audience is going to do is they know this because they do this all the time. They are going to now be challenged by answering the question that I asked everybody tonight. So y'all start typing, okay? Because you know what I do is I bring in their responses into our conversation so that we're not talking heads anymore, but we can bounce off of some of the things that they say. And the question I'm going to remind you, why would the Lord share and what would he want us to do with such a profound and challenging message? Remember, we're talking about a little strength, not a great deal of it, but a little strength. And with that little strength, that church in Philadelphia was commended and was given access to the kingdom. The door was open, they went in with a little strength. Not a great deal, you know, be faithful over a few things, right? And I will make you ruler over many. So that's what we're thinking about. That's what we're talking about. And that's what I want you guys to begin to entertain. So I'm going to go ghost. You can do likewise. Just remember how you did it so you can come back, okay?
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
So we're going to go ghost and I'm going to share my screen again and then we're going to go from there. All right. And let me see. Where's my screen share? Okay, there we go. And I will do that. Okay, so here we go, guys.
Please don't forget our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company and J. Lauren Russell Consulting, LLC, for all of your church financial consulting needs. You need a church loan. You need your trustees to be trained. You need biblical economic training. You need personal loan reduction strategies, property development, property maintenance. Remember, it's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Reach out to us. Email us at jlaurenr at jlr.llc. That's JLORENR at jlr.llc. Or simply give us a telephone call at 718-328-8096. That's 718-328-8096. Matters of Faith, the book. You can use our Cash App to obtain it. Just $ Matters of Faith. The book is $24.15. That includes shipping and handling. You can send your check or money order to the JLR Company, Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. You can also get it as an ebook by going to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. That's www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Check out the Eat Okra app for all Black-owned restaurants all over the nation. That's right, Eat Okra. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. That's the Matters of Faith, the radio show YouTube channel. And last but not least, get your subscription to Better Mag magazine today. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50, and you can get that by going to www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com.
The issues which face us all are not just how to survive. Obviously, we are doing that somehow. But really how to thrive. Really. Thrive with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. This poem is called "And Still I Rise." Now, every person in this auditorium has gone to sleep one night or another, or gone to bed one night or another with fear or pain or loss or terror, unhappiness, grief, insecurity. And yet each of us has awakened, arisen, seen another human being and said, "Morning, how are you?" "Fine, thanks, and you?" Now, wherever that abides, whether it's behind the kneecap or in the bend of the elbow or between the teeth, wherever that is, lives, there we will find our nobleness. Not nobility, I think that's a pompous word, but the nobleness of the human spirit, that we rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, I rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance? As if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs. Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, wow. There I go.
Tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m., yours truly, Reverend Dr. J. Loren Russell, will be the order of the day, the preacher, at the Baptist Ministers Evening Conference of the Bronx and vicinity. We meet at Mount Bethel Baptist Church, 698 Cortlandt Avenue in the Bronx, New York. That's 698 Cortlandt Avenue, Bronx, New York. That's between 153rd and 154th Streets in the Bronx. 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night. Reverend Dr. J. Loren Russell at the Baptist Ministers Evening Conference of the Bronx and vicinity. And now the article for the last time this evening. That article, With a Little Strength, can be found in my column at the Yonkers Insider, www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. That's www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. The column is also carried in Better Mag magazine. That's www.abettermag.com, www.abettermag.com. The column is also carried in Pamela's Big Heart newsletter. Now, many of you received directly from me the link to the article. If you did not, you can always find the link in every one of my social media outlets. That includes Facebook, the group, Facebook, the pages, J. Loren Russell and Matters of Faith. You can find it in my X account, J. Loren Russell. You can find it in LinkedIn. You can find it pretty much any way you can find me. You'll find the article, With a Little Strength. Revelations chapter 3 verses 7 and 8, New King James Version. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things says he who is holy, he who is true, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. I know your works. See, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. For you have a little strength, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. With a little strength. The book of Revelations is one of the most misunderstood books in the Bible. It is avoided by preachers, overlooked by Christians, ignored by almost everyone else because of its peculiar imagery, symbolic language, strange creatures, unexplainable mysteries, and fatalistic conclusions. But if we look beyond the unexplainable, the mysterious, the symbols, and the creatures, if we take the time to really examine the book, we find a book of hope, a book of promise, a book of encouragement, a book of love. There was a total of 7 churches mentioned in this pericope. Only the churches of Philadelphia and Smyrna were singled out as faithful. The Church of Philadelphia was commended by Jesus for having a little faith. Because they remained faithful to the Lord and his word, they were allowed to enter the open door. Every church today can identify with one of the 7 churches Jesus mentioned. I hope it's either the Church of Philadelphia or the Church of Smyrna. But whatever church you identify with, remember in this book, there is hope, there is promise, there is encouragement, there is love. Our God is a God of another chance. Every one of the 7 churches, whether they were commended or not, were promised an eternal reward that does not require great strength to acquire. The Church of Philadelphia shows that all you need is enough strength to stay in his word and to go through the door he opens. With just a little strength, or as Jesus quoted in Matthew 17:20, faith as a mustard seed. The reward he promised to the Church of Philadelphia is the same reward for you. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, and the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and I will write on him my new name. Sometimes, when we talk about the church, we think of brick and mortar, but Jesus is talking about flesh and blood. He is talking about the people who make up the church. The challenge to the church is really a challenge to us. With just a little strength, you will be blessed. And now the question for the last time tonight. And yeah, get your pens and get your typing skills ready. Why would the Lord share, and what would he want us to do with such a profound and challenging message? Let me ask that question one more time. Why would the Lord share, and what would he want us to do with such a profound and challenging message? For those of you who are just meeting my guest tonight for the first time, I know that you're impressed. Reverend Dr. Brian Lee Spearman, Senior Pastor of Marietta First Baptist Church in Marietta, South Carolina. He is a family man. You see him there with his lovely wife. You see him there with his children. He is a sports fanatic. That's why it took me so long to get him, because he was coaching these boys, and he loves coaching and training and helping young people to develop into who they ought to be. And he's a man of God. When I found this picture of him, it reminded me of the Staple Singers song, Respect Yourself. And it says, if you don't give a heck about the man with the Bible in his hand, just get out the way and let the gentleman do his thing. So Matters of Faith family, would you welcome with me again tonight my friend, my guest, and my brother in the Lord, Reverend Dr. Brian Lee Spearman, Senior Pastor, Marietta First Baptist Church in Marietta, South Carolina.
All right. So I'm back. Now I'm just waiting for you to come back. And I'm going to stop
here.
right there. There you go.
Yes,
Stop.
sir.
Matter of fact, let me put that back up because I want you to tell us about these photos that I found of you.
Okay.
So this, I know that this is the wife. I
It
saw
is.
that. And I think those are your boys, right?
It is. Okay. So the top picture, I preached at North Greenville University for the first time. I've preached there several times since, but that would have been 2010.
Okay.
Then the picture down there with my wife and I dressed up, we took our youngest boy to the Peace Center in Greenville, South Carolina for a Broadway play. Now he's been to a Broadway play there in New York, but we took him to a Broadway play last year. Then the picture with me and my bride and my 3 boys over there at the football game, that would be this year. And so my oldest boy, he's not playing next year at North Greenville, but he's a kicker. And so that was the game where all of us got to go. And so we got a picture there. And my family is kind of crazy because you would think, we are definitely, my wife graduated from Clemson twice. So we're big Clemson fans. But
Okay.
my youngest boy down there with that blonde hair with that Miami Hurricane shirt, my wife's uncle is the math chair at the University of Miami. And so we go to Miami a couple of times a year. And so we all are Canes fans when we're not Clemson fans. And then the bottom one is one of my boys playing basketball. And so they all have been playing all the way through. Now all of them are it's crazy because I look and they are all doing 3 different sports. And so it's crazy. My middle one, my 18-year-old, he plays soccer. And then my youngest one is a wrestler. And so
wow.
he played football this year, and he's wrestling now, and just finished about 7th in the state of South Carolina. And for middle school in 8th grade for his weight class. So we're proud of him. So
That's not bad.
that is all 4 of those pictures right there.
I wrestled in high school.
Okay.
Not on the team. We used to do a curriculum. Our high school curriculum was everything. We had basketball, weightlifting, gymnastics, wrestling, floor exercises, the whole bit. Our gym teacher was actually a silver medalist in the Olympics.
Wow. Oh,
So
that's impressive.
it was an amazing. I mean, I think about I went to an all boys school, so everybody was in great shape. I mean, everybody. And I went to a trade school. I studied automotive, so everybody was lifting motors and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So it was really, really a great experience. So now I really will stop my share, but I wanted to make sure that you saw that because I really wanted to, I did a little searching just to make sure I captured who you are.
Absolutely.
So thank God for that. I appreciate that. And so we're back. Let me do this because the question that I put on the question I pose for everyone is the question that I really want to delve into a bit because that's the one that I think, really captures the moment and also the thoughts of people who are watching as well, because I want to bring them into the conversation so that they can likewise be a part of the conversation. And so Daryl Miller, Daryl's a frequent a guest of mine as well. He said, so to me, God is love, wonderful, magnificent, awesome love. Love I wouldn't ever have known otherwise. And his great love is for all mankind. And he desires that all experience his love. And then he says, he followed it up, as much as God has done to ensure that we have experienced his great love for us, it is his request that we share that love with others. And we are indeed obligated, even grateful to do so. So I'll let you comment on that.
Well, there's 2 passages that come to my mind right now. Number one, as a Christian, our job is to share with the ends of the earth. Right. I mean, you look at Acts 1:8, it says, home, what I think is state, South Carolina, nation, and to the ends of the earth. And, we're commanded. It wasn't something that it was just a suggestion. It was a commandment. Right. It was a command that we take the love of Christ to those that are around. And then, of course, the Great Commission in Matthew 28, he says, go therefore and baptize and bring nations, right? That's everybody. And so, I tell you, it's one of those things where with the world that we live in that has become so polarized, I really feel like in so many ways, that little bit of strength we're talking about here, I love the fact that we are commanded. Christ is love. God is love. He sent Christ for us, and it is our job. It is commanded of us to take the good news to all people. And it's just like you said earlier, it's to cast the seed, but the Lord's the one that waters. And the Lord is the one that takes it and grows the seed. And so, I love what Daryl's saying there. It is our job. Mm-hmm. It is our job to take it to all nations, and we might not physically be able to go, but we're called to be a light, just like in Matthew 5:16, it says, hey, what are you going to do? You're going to put the light under Jesus is like, are you going to be the light? Yeah. Are you going to be salt? Yeah. That's what we should be. Right. So that idea is that strength has to come from that. That idea that the Christ, when you were talking about the church in Philadelphia, that idea is that with a little strength, with his strength, right, it is to share with a lost and dying world the love of Jesus Christ.
Well, I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad that you made emphasis of that, and you used the word polarized. And I think that, when you came the last time, that was Joe Biden had just won the election. Mm-hmm. And coming this time, and Donald Trump has just won
the election.
So I guess you come in election times, but yeah, we talked about that a little bit. And you talked about the polarization, and yes, and I've noticed that we sometimes can't even talk about things even rationally with people because they're so polarized.
Yes.
That they have such strong opinions that there's no place for rational discussion about anything.
And we can't agree to disagree. I
Right.
mean, it's like if you can't agree 100% with exactly what I'm saying, then we can't be friends.
Right.
And that is not biblical.
Right.
That is not biblical. I don't care who is in office in the United States of America. God told me that I pray for him.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever administration's there, that I pray for him. He used, all types of kings in the Bible.
Absolutely.
And the fact of the matter is he's going to get glory one way or the other.
Yep. He used Nebuchadnezzar. He used
1,000% in Daniel.
David. I mean, think about it. Some of the greatest leaders in history, all of them, one by one, were all flawed. There was no perfect one. That's why Christ came, because there was no perfect.
1,000%.
Not
right.
David, not anybody, not easy. None of them. I mean, you can go through them and you'll find faults in everyone. And that's the thing that I like about the way in which God operates. He doesn't look for your perfection. He looks for your faithfulness.
That's exactly right.
He doesn't care, because I said this in the worship service on yesterday. I said every saint has a past, but every sinner has a future.
Absolutely.
We are going to sin, all right. And then I played a game that I like to play called Deal or No Deal. And in that, I really talk about the choices that you make and whether or not you're going to choose the right way to go. Choose you this day whom you're going to serve. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Well, if you choose wrongly, then the Lord says the only place I have for you is torment. That's it. Your choice. It's your choice. He doesn't condemn you to it. You choose that. By your actions and by your deeds and by your faith. The Bible is real simple. Confess with your mouth, believe in your heart, you shall be saved. It's real simple. Really not complicated at all.
That's right.
But if you say it and don't mean it, then you may as well have not said it, because it doesn't matter. You can't fool God. You can't just spout and then all of a sudden it becomes real. No, you have to believe it. It's got to be real in your heart. But once that happens, your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Period. That's it. You done. And you're fine. You'll be there forever. You can mess up your life, something horrible. But your faith, if you were committed and you were serious about what you said and you meant it, you just went afoul. David went afoul. Paul was there when they killed is it the first martyr, Stephen? I mean, so you can't find a person except Christ that was perfect.
Well, I'll tell you, it was interesting what you're talking about here. So yesterday, I preached Jonah chapter 2. And I said, listen, I was like, Jonah is probably one of my favorite books and least favorite books in the Old Testament. Because what happens is after he is vomited up, he goes to Nineveh like he said he would and should have the first time.
Does what he's supposed to do.
That's what he was supposed to do. That was exactly where he was supposed to go. But in chapter 3, it's so interesting because he goes and God has said, hey, I'm fixing to wipe Nineveh off the face of the earth.
Right.
I mean, they are that evil. Like there is nobody good. And when he goes and he preaches and they all repent, including the king.
Right.
The king repents.
The king started it. He started. We're gonna have a fast. We're gonna do this right.
It's the largest revival in history.
Yeah.
A whole nation turned. Even they put sackcloth on the animals.
Yeah.
And so here, an entire nation comes back to the Lord and repents. And then Jonah goes and has a pity party under the tree.
Yep.
And it was because he said, I knew you would do this. I'd just rather die. I would rather die than you save those people. And those people are us.
Right. Exactly. Right? Exactly.
There's not one good person on this planet. There's not. Right. There was Jesus. Right. He was good. He was perfect. But the problem with the church is it's made up of us.
That's right. That's exactly
the problem with anything is it's made up of us, and that idea behind Why do I think that I should have a right to be saved and somebody not? The Lord saves.
Right.
He's the only one that can save, you know? And so it just makes my prayer life different.
Well, you know, it's funny what you should say that because, you know, when you said that, you know, the Lord said, I'm going to destroy all of them.
Yeah.
Jonah got his pom-poms like, yeah, yeah. And then he didn't do it. Jonah's like, you gonna let them live? They're despicable. And
Yeah.
listen to this. I did a little analysis, right? I did a little chart analysis. The 7 churches. Listen to this.
Okay.
Ephesus. He commended them. He said, rejecting evil, their perseverance, and their patience, he commended them for. And he said, you will have the tree of life. That was a promise. Smyrna, for gracefully bearing their suffering, they will get the crown of life. Pergamos. The Bible says, and Jesus is talking and he's condemning them. He says they kept the faith. They have hidden manna and a stone with a new name. Thyatira, for their love, service, faith, patience that had grown greater than at first. They will rule over nations and receive the morning star. Sardis, some have kept the faith. They will be faithfully honored and clothed in white. Laodicea had no commendation, but they were sharing Christ's throne. Philadelphia, they persevered in faith, kept the word of Christ, and honors his name. They have a place in God's presence, a new name, enter into the New Jerusalem. Now, think about this. Every one of the churches, commended or not, because, you know, commended or not, were promised an eternal reward.
That's right.
The God that we serve is a God of another chance, not one more chance, but another chance. Whatever church, and each one of those churches kind of identify with something in us, because we're one of the 7 churches. I just hope it's Philadelphia and Smyrna, but it doesn't have to be. But because God is a God of another chance, John quotes Jesus and he says, I have set before you an open door and no one can shut it. You have a little faith. This is what he said to Philadelphia. You have kept my word and have not denied my name. Now that's the same instruction that he's given to all the rest of them. If you will not forsake my name, if you keep my word, I will give you a reward. So you repent and you believe, you get a reward. It doesn't matter what you've done. You could be a mass murderer.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to suffer the consequences of your actions. You may spend the rest of your life, your natural life, in jail, but that has nothing to do with your eternal resting place. Nothing, right? Because we all make mistakes. The punishments that we receive on this side of the Jordan River are predominantly man-made. We created those punishments. God has the final say, and he has the final judgment of where you're going to spend all eternity.
That's right.
And remember that these 7 churches were the worst. 5 of the 7, right? 5 of the 7. That's most of us. Most of us are not Philadelphia. Most of us are not Smyrna. Most of us are Laodicea. Most of us are Sardis. Most of us are Thyatira. Most of us are Pergamos. Most of us are Ephesus. We are all of those, right? And if we're not, we used to be.
That's right.
Used to be. We just now have been saved by the grace of God, and now we're as the Bible says, working out our soul salvation in fear and trembling.
Absolutely.
And that's what, I think, for me, that was the emphasis. That was the emphasis. We don't know when our final time comes. We don't have the privilege of knowing that. So what we do is we are saved instantaneously, but the sanctification is a process.
Yes.
I don't know anybody. I don't know. No, that's not true. I know one person. One. My cousin. I saw this with my own eyes. He gave his life to the Lord. He literally fell out on the floor of the church. He literally fell out on the floor of the church. I was standing right beside him. And I ran around the church like I had no head on, right? Like a chicken. Because the spirit moved, and I never did that before. My cousin, older cousin, my dad's age, got up from the floor. He used to have a bar in his house, literally a bar, a selling liquor bar. He closed it immediately. He used to abuse his wife. He stopped it immediately. He became a deacon in the church. I've never seen anybody like just turn their life around just like that. Everything changed. It's like that guy that calls you in the morning, he writes you that text every morning. Completely changed. Completely. Yep. Most other people, it's a process. They don't stop smoking right away. They don't stop drinking right away. They don't stop whoremongering right away. It takes time. But the Lord is that's okay. It's a process that you're gonna go through. And what happens now is when you do it, there is not a conscience. You know, your conscience is telling you did something. No, it's the Holy Spirit, that's convicting you.
That's right.
And that's a difference, right? Now you're convicted. Now you're saying, Lord, forgive me. You mean it. It's not like, okay, Lord, forgive me. Okay. That looks, not that. That's what you were. No longer what you are.
That's right.
And then you become convicted. You literally can't get away from the conviction. It's inside. It's not out here. It's in here.
That's right.
And so all of these churches, no matter what they did, said if you can follow the instruction and do what the Church of Philadelphia has done, you will receive this eternal glory, the tree of life, the crown of life, hidden manna, and a stone with a new name, rule over nations and receive the morning star, faithfully honored and clothed in white, share in Christ's throne, a place in God's presence, a new name, enter into the New Jerusalem. What else could you ask for? Absolutely. What else is there? That's it. So when you say we can't agree to disagree, we forget that ultimately that's where we're trying to go. That's kingdom.
That's right.
This is castle. That's kingdom. So I may not agree with you. We may not agree on these things. But what I do agree on is that your soul is very, very important to me.
Absolutely.
That's what matters to me. So that's soapbox number 2. I'm done. So yeah, but you know, and that's interesting because the polarization, I've noticed it. And you know, you didn't notice because it's before, but last year, 23-24, I was the district governor for Rotary.
Okay.
Now, in New York City, that's the first time that an African American has been the district governor in over 100 years. I'm number one. I'm the first. We have the most diversified ethnically, culturally, racially of any district in the world. We're in New York. Anyway, I was told that we had the most harmonious year that we've ever had in as long as anybody can remember. And I don't attribute that to me. I attribute that to the Lord because I was doing what the Lord told me to do in that arena, because that arena is the arena where people need to see the living God.
That's right.
Right? They need to see that. So that's what I did. I personified Christ to the people that I was working with. And that's what we're supposed to do, right? To go to all the world. Yes. So I have friends from around the world because Rotary is an international. They're in 214 countries around the world. And I met every district governor around the world, every one of them.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
Well, I'll tell you, this summer we actually have started a partnership in Clarkston, Georgia. And so you know, talking about that polarization, that idea, just that people can't agree to disagree and all this. Clarkston, Georgia has about 80 different nationalities, refugees. And so the church there that we worked with and did a camp with, and they do a camp every week during the summer. It was beautiful because there were 19 different nationalities. And so we were able to work with 19 different nationalities. And the cool thing was when we worshiped, we got to do like 3 or 4 different languages.
Yeah.
And so it was so beautiful just to see that. Like and he would have no problem with me sharing this. One of the young men that worked with us is, I'm not going to tell you where he's from because I really don't think that would be best. But anyway, from another country, had a really brutal way of getting to the United States. Came to Christ when he was, he and his dad and his brother were in another country in an actual internment camp. They came to Clarkston, Georgia. Long story short, we worked with him and he helped with middle school this summer. Okay. And so got to know him real well, about 18 years old. And so we went to Stone Mountain.
Okay.
Like, hey, you want to go? And he's like, yeah, I want to go. I was like, awesome. So, we're South Carolinians. And so we're in the little bus and we go to Stone Mountain and we had a blast. And on the way back, my kids the kids in our youth group, they said, hey, Preacher Brian, will you play some? Now we played all types of stuff. We played Journey, we played Queen, we played all this different stuff. And all of a sudden from the back, my man Karis goes, hey, Preacher Brian, play Sweet Home Alabama. And I said, Karis, did you just ask me to play that in the car? And he's like, in the bus? He goes, yeah. So I told him, I said, son, look, I'm 48 years old. I got 3 kids. He knew one of them because one of my boys was serving with me on the mission trip. And I was taking him home. And I said, son, I'm going to be honest with you. He said, my first mission trip was to coal mine in Kentucky. I said, I worked and taught Sunday school to first and second graders. I can remember it. I was so nervous. I was nervous. And we had there were about 7 churches in Pickens that had gone in together to go to Appalachia, Kentucky. And I said, but son, if you had told me at the age of 7, I said, I've been to Japan. I've been lots of places, Guatemala, Nicaragua, you name it. I said, if you had told me that at 48 years old, I'd be driving through Atlanta. And I said, I would have somebody from your country that's 18 years old ask me to play Sweet Home Alabama. There's no way in the world I would have ever thought that. So he actually came and spent some time with my family a couple of weeks ago. And I said, son, that just blows my mind how the world has come here.
Yep.
How it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Really that God is a God of love, but he's a God that wants all nations to know him.
So let me ask you this question. This is a hard question, right? And we're going to this, and I'm going to invite you back along with some others because I want to have this real hard conversation. But how does that play into? Because I'm going to meet. I started a chaplaincy. I'm going to meet with my chaplains. I'm going to meet with the board of directors on tomorrow, and we're going to talk about a position that we're going to take on immigration. Because New York City is immigrant heaven, right? We have everybody here. So what is the position that you're taking in South Carolina with regard to immigration with this new paradigm that's coming up and the new the new mandates that have come down the pipe?
Okay, so I'll just give you a straight up answer. This is where I really truly pray, and there's tension everywhere. I mean, if you look at the media, they no matter what side you're on, they're going to pull tensions, and they're going to try to pit this group against this group and this group against this group. The people that we worked with there, the beauty of what I saw was most of them were actually here because they were truly refugees. Mm-hmm. They were brought from their country for religious reasons or to put them in a safe place. Mm-hmm. And the ones in which we worked with were working towards, and I love this, they were working towards citizenship. They were working towards, they really want to be here.
Right.
And so we had one of the guys share with us. He says, look, he said, I came in like 1997, and some of them had come from, Ethiopia, and I mean, all these different places.
Right.
Libya. I mean, one of the ladies that shared, and I don't want to share her story just because it's just a really amazing story, how God brought her to Christ, brought her mom to Christ, brought her dad to Christ. And Gaddafi was in was in control, and her dad was the basketball coach. And so her dad, how when he came to Christ, okay, the question was asked. He's like, some of our students, we had this different things at night, and the question was asked, well, like, well, what did your family think of Gaddafi? And she says, well, he was a dictator, but at least he let believers be believers. That little bit of strength, because they literally, the government after Gaddafi left, the government was trying to kill her father.
Yeah.
Now she has since come, and her husband both were refugees. Okay, so here's kind of my point. My point is he says, listen, he said, there's a difference in, and this is her husband talking. I mean, he came over from his country from the Sudan. I mean, he came over here, and he says, he said, I was a believer, and that's why I came. He said, and I went through the process. So this idea, I think that, well, I mean, let's face it. I've been to Ellis Island. Okay. I saw what they did to people when they came over for Ellis Island. I mean, I've been to New York several times. Obviously, I don't live in New York. Okay. I love the city. I love New York City. But anyway, the point behind that is I feel like as Christians, going into this time period, I think that we have to settle through exactly what it looks like when they get here or when somebody gets here. Me, I want to open my door, but at the same time, I want to be able to say, okay, how do we do this together instead of just coming in? You know what I'm saying? And I've got a lot where I live. I've got a lot of people in South Carolina, okay, that are worried, that are scared, right? I mean, kids that I know from school and things like that. I mean, they're scared. They're like, what does this mean for us? What does this mean for my family? And I don't have the answers. Right. I don't. I know what I have been given, where I'm at, and my position is that I have to love and I have to care, because everybody's God's creation. Yeah. But how we do that, I don't have an answer. I wish that I had a clear-cut answer on, what that means. But I think that a lot of times what has happened is that polarized word comes out, and so I love open dialogue. I love open dialogue to talk about it, because a lot of the ones that we work with, the people that we work with in those refugee areas, they're here because they were brought here.
Right.
And they truly are trying to go through a process to say, hey, you know what? This is where I want to be, or they have come at least in the correct way of documentation. And I think that's just something that, I mean, I can't go to another country without them checking everything in the world. When I flew into Beirut, Lebanon, 2018, right before COVID, right? I could not go to Israel with my passport. I had to been if I had gone to Israel, then I could not get in Beirut. If I had gone to Beirut, I'll have to get a whole other passport before I can go to Israel, because they vet you that way. And you know what? Somebody's like, Brian, I can't believe that you would go to Beirut. I'm like, well, people in Beirut need to know Jesus, right? I mean, that's kind of the point. And so there's just so many things that I wish that I had clarity, I guess. I've in so many ways watched so many news sources from so many different places. I don't even know where we stand, if you want my honest opinion. I don't know what some of it even means. So until we get to that point, I don't really know what to say, but that's kind of where I am on that. And I would love to come back and dialogue some more about it.
Well, we will, because
we have been praying
about this before. We really, because, everyone, I was talking to a young lady yesterday, Saturday. She's one of my chaplains. She's one of my lieutenants. and we've set it up paramilitary style. I'm the chief, so I got two captains and 5 or 6 lieutenants, and we're looking for some sergeants and stuff. And got about 90 chaplains, which is really amazing.
That is
We've done
amazing.
work with the mayor. We're doing work with the district attorney. Because of people, they know me. They know my body of work, and so they're asking me, and I'm delighted to do it and bring in the chaplains so that they get that experience and that exposure as well. But one of my chaplains reached out to me. She's in school. She's, I guess she's doing an MDiv, and so she reached out to me and said, "What is our position on immigration?" I said, "We haven't decided on that yet." Because New York's a sanctuary state, right?
Yes.
And so do you comply with, do you help out? Now we're not a church. I'm chaplain. At my church where I'm serving, it's not a Baptist church, Evangelical Church of God. I we've not taken a position. We don't house anyone there or anything like that.
That's
But
right.
just prior to these executive orders coming in the past administration, New York City had actually gotten to the point that they were literally asking churches to reconfigure the sanctuary so that they could house a lot of these immigrants coming in because they had nowhere to go. They had nowhere to stay. So they created these encampments. And they can be dehumanizing, right? I don't care where you come from. They're humanizing. And so they were asking. So my church has a parsonage, and we were looking at maybe converting, because I'm not staying there. No one's living there. Converting some of that so that we could maybe provide some housing. But it was a conversation. Um, but now, many of those persons who were immigrants coming into the country that were sort of bused from Texas to New York, I mean, by the thousands, and we received them initially. And it's like, okay, but then, hey, we don't have any money, federal government, we need
What are
something
we
to
gonna
help us
do?
out.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you just keep sending people up here, you busting them out, you send them in planes and everything else. That's unconscionable as far as I'm concerned. And so we're now caught between this rock and this hard place. What do we do? What do we do? Human life is important, right?
Mhm.
As you and I both know, the idea is that anybody can be saved. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what your language is. I don't
Right.
care what your past is. Anybody, because the door is open for everyone. That's why Christ came. And so our position has to be one of compassion and love. Now, do you go against the law of the land in order to be compassionate and loving? That becomes the question, right? Uh,
Yes.
and then, of course, my background, I'm African American. My family is from America. Many persons in my family, and they're, my grandparents, my great grandparents, although I don't know who they were, but they were
Sure.
here. And
Mhm.
so what they did was they went against the law because the law was not quite right for us. It
Mhm.
was, it was law, but it wasn't the right thing to do. And many people joined us in that. And we suffered quite a bit physically, emotionally, and every other way in order to get to the point that we are now, where we're recognized as full citizens of these United States. We don't want to roll that back. We don't want to roll
No.
that back, and we're not going to roll that back. No, and so people are looking and saying, well, so what do we do? What do we do with this ideology coming in of people, not taking humanity seriously, right? That it's policy versus humanity. That's a challenge for me as a man of God,
Mhm.
because I believe love is the thing that conquers fear. I believe that love is the thing that overcomes all of these misconceptions about all things. I talked about Rotary, and I talked about the diversity in this district. And the thing that I really like about it is that because I was the district governor and I went to every single club, we have 58 of them.
Yeah.
It's every club. And many of them were not of my hue, not of my socioeconomic background, didn't have my same educational levels that I have, some less, some more, But what I found is that there's a common denominator, there's a common element in the Rotary, right? That we exist with. You know what it is? Service above self. That's the mantra that we live by. Service above self. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be fair to all concerned? Those are the 4 pillars that we stand on. And I think about that. I said, now, if we live by those 4 pillars, and if we ask ourselves, can we give service above self? Well, that will change the dynamic, because in that circle, right? It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your politics are. What matters is how you treat one another. Will you give service above self? Whatever you do, is it fair to all concerned? Will it build friendships and better, those kind? Will it stand on those 4 pillars? And that 5th one, to give it that center, will it do that? And if not, then we shouldn't be doing it. If it does, then we need to stand firm on that. And what I found out, that all of the other things that we had that were, or that we have, not had, past tense, but have, whatever our beliefs are, whatever our sentiments are, they don't come into this arena, because this arena is different. It's not based upon your emotions. It's not based upon your politics. It's not based upon even your religion. Now, I'm a Christian and I believe in Christianity. I believe it wholeheartedly. But I got some great friends who are Muslims. I got some great friends who are Baha'is. I got some great friends who are Hindus and Shindus, and some who are atheists, some who are homosexual, some who are whoremongers, some who are thieves, some who are liars, and they all, because that's everybody, right? Everybody got something, so how do we find that common ground? How do we get there? And then how do we treat those individuals who are here? Do we put them out because of the fact that they here, quote unquote, illegally? Because if that's the case, most people in this country got here illegally. If you look back over their lifespan, they didn't come through Ellis Island. Sure. They got here another way. So if you're going to be that rigid, then you're gonna have to go back and be rigid to everything, right? Because right is right, wrong is wrong. You can't do it. You can't do it for some and not for others. You have to level the playing field. If you do that, everybody is guilty. The only ones who are not truly are those who are native to this nation from the very beginning.
Sure.
So if everybody's guilty, stop pointing fingers. And how do we do that? How do we do that in this crazy, mixed up, polarized world? Darryl says something. He says, I agree. We have to pray for whoever is in office, pray for God's spirit and his angels to be there in the offices and do good. God's good is what we're praying for, especially now, for many reasons.
I think one of the things with going back to the whole a little hope is this: what can I do that the Lord has led me to do where I'm at?
Yes, exactly. Clean up your own backyard.
What can God give me today that every single detail of somebody that walks into my church or walks by me in the gas station, or I get people come up all the time. Hey man, you got $1? Hey, I tell you what, I don't have $1, but if you'll walk in here, I'll get you something to eat, right? Or hey, I don't have $1, but I tell you what, if you need gas, I'll pump some gas in you. I've done that numerous times. And so when you sit there and you look at what the Lord said, he said, the greatest commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second one is love your neighbor as yourself. Well, who is your neighbor? Well, it's everybody. It's everybody. And so, as a Christian, and that's where those tensions come, it's like, okay, so how do we do this? And I think, and this is something that I have found over the, 10, 15 years. America is not God's people.
You got that one, huh? You saw that memo coming. Yes, you're right about that.
Okay.
You're right about that.
Israel was God's people. Now, brothers and sisters that are in Christ, that's God's people. Okay. Ultimately, Christians are God's people. But my point behind that is I think that in so many ways, both sides take one or two verses and they want to make it a t-shirt. And they forget what comes before it and they forget what comes after it. Or they don't know what comes before it.
Right.
And they don't care.
They don't want to know what comes after.
And they don't want to know what comes after.
Right.
Because when you look at those different things, we are all guilty. Right. But America is not God's chosen people. And while we have gotten so caught up in the media of just, let's just take the United States for just 5 seconds here. That storm that ripped through South Carolina and North Carolina, Helene, I'm telling you, there are still people right now in Asheville that I know for a fact are living in a tent. There's an association there with 22 churches, and as of a couple of months ago, none of them have power yet today. Wow. In fact, they won't have power till May. One of them was literally picked up, moved half a mile down the road with the flood, put on somebody else's property, and the man won't let them in their church. Now, I say that to say, then you got the fires
right
in LA. Okay. Equally as horrible. How we made that political, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is there was a major storm in Asheville, and it worked all the way down into where I'm at in Marietta. And then the fires, my sister and them coming from San Diego, they just moved to Virginia. My brother-in-law's a Navy chaplain. There were fires not far from San Diego last week. Okay. But here's the problem. There's 26,000 people that will die today because of hunger.
Yep.
26,000 that will die because they don't have a basic Tylenol. And the problem is that's the world, right? 80% live on less than like $2 a day.
That's right.
That's the world. And so when we look at the world and we look at that little bit of hope, I cannot fix everything all over the world, but I can be what God called me to be right here.
Right.
And so I think that, all of these things, the greatest problem in the world is sin. The greatest problem in the world is lostness. That's the greatest problem in the world. And so how do I have the Lord's strength and a little bit of it to go a long way? He's the only one that can multiply it.
Well, you're absolutely right. Got to get you back in, right? Because
I'll come back.
We're out of time, but
Yep.
the Lord put something on my heart. And I want to share that, but I want to really just thank you in advance of that, and I really appreciate you, and thank you for finding the time. And we will come back and do this again because we really need to talk about this, and I think we need to look at it from an ecumenical perspective. Sure. Put our differences on the side and look at it and say, how can we come together to do what's right now and do my part? I was just thinking about on Saturday, I went to a FedEx store. I had to drop something off, and I got there and they weren't open yet. It was freezing on Saturday. I'm talking about freezing. It was like 20 degrees. And there was a young lady standing in front of the store. And I'm looking, and they wouldn't open. It was like 9:45. They don't open till 10 o'clock. It's like, I said, now I don't want to seem like I'm, so I'd be careful. So I said, I opened it. I said, they're not open yet. She said, no. And she said, it's like, no. I said, oh, excuse me. I said, would you be offended if I offered you a seat in my car just to wait until they open? She said, please. So she came and she sat down, and I mean, she was just shaking and trembling because if she and where this FedEx office is, it's way off in the and even in New York is off on the side. There's nothing there. And so I said, please come sit down. She sat. I turned the heat up high as I could probably just to, I said, let me knock that heat, because she was freezing and she'd have been standing out there for another 15 minutes. Well, that's small. But that's one of the things that I think you're talking about. How do you show humanity? How do you show human concern so that if a person is simply cold, give them a blanket, give them something that warms them up? I mean, come on. You know, if a person, the Bible says, if they're thirsty, give them something to drink. If they're hungry, if your enemy is thirsty, give him to drink. If he's hungry, give him something to drink. For that's how you heap burning coals of fire on your enemy.
That's right.
The Bible says in the book, I don't know why Paul didn't finish this, but in the book of Proverbs, it says, and the Lord will reward you. Your reward comes from the kingdom. It doesn't come from everybody. It comes from the God. It comes from God. So anyway, let me do this. Let me close out, and then we'll get you back because we're going to run a little bit over time for everybody. But the last time you were on, Reverend Dr. Spearman, was as a guest of Matters of Faith, was January 10th, 2021, just a few days after the insurrection and the attack on the Capitol building. The topic was strength and weakness. And in my closing, I stated this. This is what I said. The only thing that we can brag about is where the Lord has brought us from. Where we are today, individually and collectively, is not based on our talent, our charm, our intellect, our resources, or our influence. We owe our good fortune to a gracious God who converts our weaknesses into strengths. This is the type of reassurance we need as we navigate the perilous and the uncertain times we are living through today. That night, our conversation did not leave us feeling hopeless or helpless. In fact, both Reverend Dr. Kevin Miller and Reverend Dr. Brian Spearman, I'm get that word all mixed up, my two guests, gave us something to look forward to. They gave us things to be hopeful for. They gave us a reason to be optimistic and helped us to see that in our weakness, we are strong. Tonight, that thought was reaffirmed because we have been endowed with a little strength, just a little strength. I asked the compound question tonight. Why would the Lord share, and what would he want us to do with such a profound and challenging message? He told and challenged us so that we will know that he is a God of promise and a God of another chance. The challenge that was given to the church is really a challenge to us. It's not brick and mortar, but flesh and blood. And the best thing is that it doesn't take much. Like the Church of Philadelphia, we will be blessed if we have a little strength. My friend and brother, Reverend Dr. Brian Lee Spearman, I am honored, so honored that you were able to carve out some time to be my guest tonight. You validate this ministry with your presence, and I appreciate you for that. I really do. Our kindred spirit is reflective of a little strength making a major impact. Just do me a favor. We talked about it already, but look at your calendar. Pick out a couple of dates, and we'll make it happen, okay?
Sounds great.
Please do. Now, don't forget our sponsors and advertisers. The JLR Company, J. Lauren R. Consulting, LLC. Those are my companies. For all your church financial needs, we do trustee training. We train in finances. We do loans. We do all kinds of stuff. So we want you to make sure that you don't forget that. Call 718-328-8096 or email us at jlaurenr@jlr.llc. That's JLORENR@jlr.llc. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book. I've been talking about it all night, but this is the book. If you don't have a book, you need to get a copy of it. You can email me, or you can also go to my Cash App, $ Matters of Faith. The book is $24.15 for this hard copy, or you can get the ebook version, which you can get at www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Better Mag Magazine. Make sure that you get a subscription. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50. It's a great magazine. They publish 4 times a year. Make sure that you get yourself a copy of Better Mag Magazine and subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Telephone, text, email, message, any way you do it, but tell a friend to join us regularly on Matters of Faith, the radio show. We are now live on Matters of Faith, the YouTube channel. We are also dropping each episode on our Matters of Faith and J. Lauren Russell Facebook groups. Please, ma'am, please, sir, subscribe, like, and share this Matters of Faith YouTube channel. And make sure that you don't miss a single episode of Matters of Faith because you did not subscribe, like, and share this Matters of Faith, the radio show YouTube channel. So on behalf of my guest, Senior Pastor Brian Lee Spearman, and myself, I want you to remember that an abundant life and an eternity with the Father in his glory is available to everyone with a little strength. Join us next week, where my guest will be Brother Andrew Watson of the Mount Carmel Baptist Church of the Bronx, New York. Now, if no one has told you this today, let me be the first to say, I love you, and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. So get used to it. The Lord bless you, the Lord keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So, Matters of Faith family, God bless you. You know that I love you. So, good night and God bless.